very happy new year and greetings for the Kalpatharu day. We usually on 1st January we read part from the relevant part from the great master describing what happened on 1st January 1886. Sri Ramakrishna, before we start reading, I'll just go to a little bit of the background. In 1885, Sri Ramakrishna started having throat pain, and it increased when he talked too much or when he went into ecstasy. And Sri Ramakrishna, nobody could stop him from talking. Whenever devotees came, he will start talking to them about spiritual matters, and there'll be devotional songs, and he'll go into ecstasy. And talking, too much of talking and ecstasy increases throat pain. And there's a place called Panihati, not far from Dakshinesha Kali temple, and they have a festival every year in June. It's a festival of the Vaishnavas. It's a lot of singing and chanting the name of God. And some of the devotees were not keen that Sri Ramakrishna attend that because he may go into ecstasy. But Sri Ramakrishna said, no, I will be able to stop that. I'll be all right. I'll be careful. And he attended. And as they expected, he went again and again into ecstasy, singing, and the pain increased. And the doctors diagnosed it as, they call it, the clergyman's throat. And treatment is difficult in Dakshinesha to bring the doctors all the way from Calcutta, so they thought it's better to take him to Calcutta for treatment. So they rented a house in Shampookur, and in the beginning of September 1885, he was brought to Calcutta. So there for about 3 months, he stayed in that house in Shampookur, and allopathy medicine, the drastic effect, the side effect and all that is too much for Sri Ramakrishna's delicate health. So they decided to have homeopathic treatment, and Dr. Mahendralal Sarkar, the very famous homeo doctor at that time, he came to treat Sri Ramakrishna. And in the gospel, we can see many entries when Sri Ramakrishna was in Shampookur. And reading those entries in the gospel, we don't get any idea that this is a sick person's room or we are dealing with a sick person. It seems as though it's a place where they have all assembled to discuss spiritual matters and have debates and discussions. Because Dr. Sarkar, when he will come and examine and prescribe whatever the medicine or the diet, and then he will spend about 4, 5, 6 hours talking with Sri Ramakrishna. And then his explanation is, this condition of yours does not allow to talk. But my case is different. When I am here, you can talk with me, but not with other people. And somebody asked, what about your practice? What about the other patients? He said, your Paramhamsa, because of your Paramhamsa, all my practice is going to be get ruined. I spend so much time here that I don't able to go to attend the other patients, go there to visit their homes. And then the next day, I go of my own accord and I can charge them. And she was not charging Sri Ramakrishna. The first day when he came, he took his usual fee, which is quite high because he was a very famous doctor. But then he came to know that the devotees are paying for his board and all the expense, they're bearing the expense. And none of the devotees were rich to say, they are just middle class people. They had their families and then bearing the expense of Sri Ramakrishna, renting the house and all his medical expense. And also, there were some young devotees who were staying there to look after Sri Ramakrishna. So they had all the food for all those people. These householders were meeting. So the doctor said, "This is my contribution. I won't charge." But the scene in the Shambhakur house, if you look at read the gospel, there is Dr. Sarkar, Girish Chandra Ghosh, and Narendra. Big discussion going on. Big discussion, argument about incarnation, about God with form, without form. Big arguments going on. Doesn't look like a patient's room at all. Anyway, Shriram, after a few months, he was there for 3 months, and then Dr. Sarkar suggested that it's better if you can move him to a less polluted area because Shambhakur is in the city and it's very polluted. So they found in a big garden house with a big garden, house with a big garden in Kasipur. And Sri Ramakrishna was moved there in the middle of December 1885. The first day, after 2-3 days, few days later, he went out for a walk. He was feeling a little better and he went out for a walk. But that whether it is a cold, suddenly getting out, it is December, it's winter there. Anyway, he got a bit of cold and tired. So afterwards, he didn't go out at all. But remaining inside, he got better. And on 1st January, he was feeling a lot better. 1st January is holiday there also. So he came out for a walk at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So that's the incident that we are going to read. We have already told the reader how one day the master came out of his room and walked in the garden for a short time. Feeling weak on account of it, he did not venture to do so again for about a fortnight. Although there was no change of treatment during that period, there was a change in the person of the doctor treating. Rajendranath Datta, born in the family of the rich and famous Akrur Datta of Babasar, Calcutta, labored hard and spent much money over a prolonged and deep study of homeopathy and its propagation in the city. Through association with him, the well-known physician Dr. Mahendralal Sarkar became convinced of the efficacy and efficiency of homeopathy and adopted that method in his profession. Rajendra Babu had heard from people of the illness of the master. He knew that if he could cure him, the reputation of homeopathy would be established among many. If he can cure Sri Ramakrishna with homeopathy treatment, then he knew, because many people knew about Sri Ramakrishna. So if Sri Ramakrishna is treated and cured by homeopathy, then homeopathy will become more popular with people. So he selected a medicine after much study and thought. He was acquainted with Atul, the younger brother of Girish. He, as far as we remember, met Atul somewhere at this time and asked him about the master's illness. He then expressed his intention of treating the master and said, "Please tell Mahendra," that's Mahendra Sarkar, "that I have selected a medicine after much thinking. I hope to get good results from it. I would like to try it once if he is agreeable. Because Sri Ramakrishna is under the care of Mahendralal Sarkar, and now Dr. Rajendra Datta wants to treat him, so he's asking Mahendralal Sarkar's permission. Adul reported this to the devotees and to Dr. Mahendralal Sarkar, and as no one had any objection to it, Rajendra Datta Babu came to visit the master in a few days. After listening to the description of the disease from the beginning, he administered Lycopodium 200. The master derived much benefit from it for more than a fortnight. The devotees thought he would perhaps soon become strong and healthy as before. When Sri Ramakrishna got sick, there was the devotees had different opinions. Some of them had the idea that Sri Ramakrishna, being an incarnation, cannot get sick. So he is just pretending to be sick to serve some purpose, to bring the devotees together, whatever is, he's just pretending. He's not really sick. That was the idea of some of the devotees. Some others had the idea that it is the Divine Mother's plan. Sri Ramakrishna is completely depending on Divine Mother Kali. So she has got some plan. That's why she is giving this illness to Sri Ramakrishna. And once her plan is fulfilled, whatever she has got plan is fulfilled, then Sri Ramakrishna will become all right. That was the idea of some of them. A third group had the idea, whether he is incarnation or a God man, he has got a human body. So it's the nature of the body to get sick. Old age, sick, illness, so all the nature of the body. So it's just nothing. There is no need for any supernatural or unnatural explanation. It's the nature of the body. That the young devotees led by Narendra had this idea. But all were concerned about Sri Ramakrishna's getting sick, because he had given different signs earlier. He had told Holy Mother earlier, and the devotees also knew. He had said when he spent days, night, especially in Calcutta, you can be sure that his time is going to be over soon on this earth. Again, if he eats from the hand of anybody and everybody, because he was very particular about who touches his food. He used to be very strict about eating food touched by other people. Only very pure people, and especially Brahmins, had to cook the food. Even Brahmins, if the person is impure, he cannot touch the food. So usually Holy Mother used to prepare all his food in Dakshineswar. And he said, if when I start eating food touched by anybody, and when I eat food, part of it is given to somebody first, and then I eat the rest, then these are all signs that my body won't last so long after that. All that happened. Sri Ramakrishna stayed overnight in Balaram's house. Once Narendra was very sick, and Sri Ramakrishna had him brought to Dakshineswar, and night he fed Narendra first and ate the rest of the food after giving part of it to Narendra. When Holy Mother objected and said that she will cook again for Sri Ramakrishna, she said, no. He said, that's fine. I don't feel any hesitancy to eat this food, part of which is already given to Narendra. But Mother felt bad, remembering what Sri Ramakrishna said. And again he said, when many people speak about this as an incarnation, then it is time to go. As an example he gave is, in the people bring goods to the market. In the during the day, from the morning till afternoon, they argue, and the price they don't give, bargain a lot. But when it's towards the end of the day, when the sun is setting, then they want to go home. They don't want to take the produce back, so they just distribute it. Whatever price the people give, they give it and go away. So Sri Ramakrishna is saying towards the end of his life, he will be just distributing the spiritual treasures that he had accumulated to one and all. That's what we see here on 1st January. Half the month of Paush, that is December, January, passed away. It was the first day of January 1886. As the master felt rather well that day, he expressed a desire to come out of his room and have a walk in the garden for some time. It was a holiday, and the household devotees came one by one and in groups shortly after midday. Thus, when the master came downstairs at 3 in the afternoon, more than 30 people were engaged in conversation in the garden under the trees or inside the house. As soon as they saw him, all got up out of reverence and bowed down to him. He came down to the garden path through the western door of the hall on the ground floor, and then slowly proceeding southward to the gate, when all followed him at a little distance. Those who have been to Kosipur Garden House can visualize how the circular, the pathway to the gate, from the house to the gate. So Sri Ramakrishna is walking along that. When he came to the middle of the path leading to the gate, he saw Girish, Ram, Atul, and a few others sitting under the trees to the west of the path. So, when he came down from his room, his attendant, young disciples, were following him. But when they saw that the household devotees who had assembled there, they had come forward and following Sri Ramakrishna, they went back. To make use of the opportunity to give a thorough cleaning to the room. Master has gone out. Before he comes, shake out the bedding and clean the room thoroughly. They went back to their work. When he came to the middle of the path leading to the gate, he saw Girish, Ram, Atul, and a few others sitting under the trees to the west of the path. They also saw him and saluted him from there and came joyfully to him. The master addressed Girish all of a sudden, before anybody had spoken a word, and said, Girish, I find you say to one and all, everywhere, so many things about this. This, when he says this means me. He could not say I and me. He always used to say this place and everything, referring to the body. And in bracket it is given that I am an incarnation of God. What have you seen and understood about me to make you do so? Girish remained completely unmoved and kneeling down on the ground near the master's feet, said in a choked voice with his hands folded and face turned upwards, what more can I say of him whose greatness Vyasa and Valmiki could not find words to express? See, Girish had been telling to all the devotees and even other people to his acquaintances, whomsoever was ready to hear, he used to describe Sri Ramakrishna as an incarnation of God. So that's why Sri Ramakrishna is asking, what have you found? What have you understood to say that you have so many things about me that I know incarnation? But this sudden question, out of the blue, but Girish was not taken by surprise. He knelt in front of Sri Ramakrishna, and the answer he gave was, what can I say of him whose glory Vyasa and Valmiki could not finish describing? Vyasa, sage Vyasa, through Mahabharata and Bhagavata, try to describe the glory of Sri Krishna. And sage Valmiki, through Ramayana, try to describe Sri Rama, God incarnate. And so, what Girish is implying is, if they themselves, these two sages, great sages, could not describe, what can I describe of that same reality? That means you are the same person who came as Rama and Krishna, that you are incarnation. The master was charmed at this fervent utterance of the devoted Girish and blessed all the devotees assembled there through their representative Girish. What more shall I say to you? May you all be blessed with spiritual awakening. That is the blessing he has given. May you all be blessed with spiritual awakening. And here we see he blessed all the devotees through the representative, one representative, just like Sri Krishna gave all the teachings through Arjuna to the humanity. Here, Sri Ramakrishna is blessing all the devotees through the representative Girish. May you all be blessed with spiritual awakening. Beside himself with love and compassion for the devotees. Hardly had he said those few words when he entered into Bhava Samadhi. Those words of profound blessing, untouched by the slightest tinge of ego sense, directly entered the devotees' hearts, where they raised high billows of bliss. They forgot time and space, forgot the disease of the master, forgot their previous determination not to touch him till he recovered, and were aware only that an extraordinary divine being, out of sympathy for them in their plight, feeling excruciating pain at their misery, and overflowing with compassion for them, had come down from heaven and called them affectionately to him for giving protection, like a mother sheltering her children against all ills by covering them lovingly with the upper part of her sari. They had made the decision that till Sri Ramakrishna recovered from this cancer, they won't touch his feet. See, the idea is if you touch the feet and when you salute, and the holy person will take your karma, your part of your bad karma will go to him. Now, Sri Ramakrishna himself, he mentioned once that his illness is due to taking the results, bad results of the some of the devotees. So that is why he is suffering, because he himself hadn't. There was no karma to work out. It is the bad karma of those devotees whom he had accepted. When they touch the feet of the Sri Ramakrishna, he get that. You can see in the life, in the gospel itself, you can see when some people came and touched Sri Ramakrishna's feet, he pulls back as though stung by a scorpion. He feels pain. And then in the life of Holy Mother, you can see Mother never refused anybody. Devotees came and touched her feet, did salutation and went away. And then Mother has burning sensation on the feet. So she washes the feet again and again with Ganges water, because she is absorbing all the evil karma of those people who had come. No, after hearing this, the devotees decided, no, nobody will touch Sri Ramakrishna's feet. They salute from a distance. That was their decision. But they forgot everything. When Sri Ramakrishna said, may you be illumined, and he went into ecstasy, they forgot everything. They forgot time and space, forgot the disease of the master, forgot their previous determination not to touch him till he recovered. They were only conscious of one fact, that a divine being has come down, feeling out of compassion for them and giving them protection. They became eager to bow down to him and take the dust of his feet. And filling the quarters with cries of victory to Ramakrishna, began saluting him one after another. They forgot all their previous determination not to touch him. They all came forward and started touching his feet and saluting. As they were thus bowing down to him, the sea of the Master's compassion transcended all bounds and brought about a wonderful phenomenon. We had almost daily seen the Master at Dakshineshwar losing himself in grace and compassion for certain devotees and blessing them by his extraordinarily potent touch in a state of divine semi consciousness. In Dakshineshwar, it had happened few times that Sri Ramakrishna touched some particular devotees and say illumined, um, arouse their kundalini, their divine consciousness. But here, as soon as they started saluting him, he started touching everybody. He now began touching each of the devotees assembled on that day in the divine mood. The joy of the devotees, it is superfluous to say, knew no bounds at the act of the Master. They felt that he would not henceforward keep concealed the fact of his divinity, either from themselves or from anybody else in the world. Nevertheless, knowing as they did their own defects, their spiritual destitution, their incapacity, they had not the slightest doubt that all alike, the sinner as well as the afflicted, would find a refuge at his feet, a touch of which dispelled all fear forever. Unable to utter a single word owing to that wonderful occurrence, some were only looking steadfastly at him, as if they were under the spell of a mantra. Some others called aloud to all within the house to come and be blessed by receiving the Master's grace. And still others collected flowers and worshipped him with them, uttering mantras. Soon the ecstasy of the Master came to an end, and the devotees too were again in their normal state of consciousness. Bringing thus to an end his walk in the garden that day, he went to the house and sat down in his room. Now, when Sri Ramakrishna touched the devotees, their reaction was different. All of them didn't react in the same way. Some of them just became spellbound. They just kept on looking at him without uttering a word. Some others remembered, oh, there are people in the house, they're inside the house. They don't know what's happening in the garden. So let us call them and ask them to come and get his blessing. They say called out. Come and may Sri Ramakrishna's blessing, come and take his blessing. And still others collected some flowers from the flowering plants and offered at his feet, uttering mantras. Then, within a few moments, the ecstasy came to an end, and Sri Ramakrishna and the devotees became normal, and he went back to the room. Some devotees like Ramchandra have described the happening of that day as the transformation by the Master of himself into the wish-fulfilling tree, Kalpatharu. But it is more reasonable, it seems to us, to call it the self-revelation of the Master, or the bestowal of freedom from fear on all devotees by revealing himself. That second one is the name that Swami Sharadananda, the author, would prefer to give. That is, Sri Ramakrishna revealed himself, or bestowing freedom from fear to all devotees. But Ramchandra Datta, a prominent household devotee, he called it as Kalpatharu. And it is interesting. So, those Sarat Maharaj, Swami Sharadananda called it as self-revelation of Sri Ramakrishna. The name Kalpataru has stuck. Maybe because it was meant for the household devotees, and the name given by the household devotees stuck to that celebration, Kalpataru. So we always refer to this day as the Kalpataru day. There's a reason why Swami Sharadananda would prefer to call it as self-revelation and not Kalpataru, because Kalpataru, the mythical wish-fulfilling tree, does not discriminate. Whatever you ask for, you get. Whether you ask good or bad, just gets. That's what he is explaining here. The Kalpataru, it is said, gives to all whatever good or bad they ask for. But the Master did much more. He made clear through that event the fact of his being a God man and of his bestowal of protection against and freedom from fear on all without the slightest discrimination. Kalpataru, what happens if you stand near the Kalpataru and wish for whatever you ask for, you get. Suppose you say, what if a tiger comes? They say tiger will come and eat you up. Then there's a story like that. So Kalpataru does not discriminate. And we, in our ignorance, we don't know what is good for us. We often ask things which are not good for us. And if everything is satisfied, whatever we ask for is fulfilled, we will be in real trouble. Afterwards, we will say, oh, why did I ask for it? Now, sometimes we say we pray to God for something, and we say, oh, I prayed so much, but God didn't answer, God didn't fulfill my desire. But years, sometime later, when you look back and realize that it was good that my desire was not fulfilled. God knows what is best for us. And it's not like Kalpataru. Kalpataru just gives whatever is, whether it's good or bad, just gives. But Sri Ramakrishna is not like that. He gives only what is good for, best for us. If you are asking for something which is not good for you, he won't give you. However much you say, oh, he didn't answer my prayer, of course he answered. The answer was no. We always want the answer yes, no. Sometimes the answer has to be no, and sometimes the answer may be not now, later. Depends, it changes. Because he always does what is best for us. Be that as it may, of all the people that felt blessed by having his grace on that day, Haran Chandra Das is worthy of being particularly mentioned. For as soon as he bowed down to him, the master in ecstasy placed his foot on Haran's head. It is only on a few occasions that we saw him bestow his grace in this way. Usually, Sri Ramakrishna did not touch anybody's head with his foot. But here, that's why he touched Haran's head with his foot. And now he is describing, Swami Sharadananda is describing how some of the devotees felt when Sri Ramakrishna touched them, what was their spiritual experience. Ramlal Chattopadhyaya, that is Sri Ramakrishna's nephew, was present there on that occasion. He had come from Dakshineshwar temple to Kasipur that day. He was present there and also received the master's grace. Asked about it, he said. So Swami Saranda asked, what did you experience when Sri Ramakrishna touched you? He said, I could formerly see a part only of the form of my chosen ideal with my mind's eye at the time of meditation. When he sat for meditation and tried to visualize his chosen deity, he could not see the form properly. When I saw the feet, I could not see the face. Again, perhaps I saw the form of the deity from face to the waist, but could not see the feet. And whatever I saw never seemed to be alive. That's the main thing. Even if you can visualize the whole form of the chosen deity, it doesn't seem alive. It's just like a picture. But no sooner had the master touched me that day than the form of my chosen ideal appeared suddenly from head to foot in the lotus of my heart and moved and looked benign and effulgent. It was a living, bright, effulgent form. We remember the names of 9 or 10 only of the persons who were present on the spot during this day's occurrence. They were Girish, Atul, Ram, Navagopal, Haramohan, Vaikuntha, Kishori, Haran, Ramlal, and Akshay. Mahendranath Datta, Mahendranath Gupta, the writer of the Gospel, was also perhaps present. He is not sure about that. But it's a matter for wonder that none of the future sannyasin devotees of the master was present there at that time. None of the young disciples was present there. Narendranath and many others of that group had been engaged in sadhana besides the master's service during the previous night for long hours, and feeling tired, they were sleeping inside the house. Although Latu and Sharath were awake and saw what was taking place from the roof of the first floor to the south of the master's room, they refrained voluntarily from going there. For as soon as the master went downstairs to have a walk in the garden, they put his clothes and bedding in the sun and were cleaning the room. Sharath, it was the duty of Sharath and Latu that day, that at the daytime, to look after Sri Ramakrishna, to care for him. Narendra had made a roster. 2 people will be at night, 2 people will be looking after him daytime, and they all the young disciples. Narendra and some others, had spent long time the previous night during spiritual practices, and so they were sleeping. Sharath and Latu saw what's happening, but they decided, as Sri Ramakrishna has gone into the garden, let us put everything out in the sun. It's a bright day, sun, and clean the room thoroughly. Thinking it might cause inconvenience to the master if they left their duty half finished, they did not feel inclined to go there. Sri Ramakrishna had often told them, whatever I have is yours. You don't have to ask. So they didn't feel the need to go and get blessing there. They wanted to clean the room and get everything ready so that when he can come back, he won't be inconvenienced. We asked a few others, including Vaikuntanath, about their experience on that day. We shall bring this subject to a close by recording what Vaikuntha told us. Vaikuntha met the master at about the same time as we did. Actually, Vaikuntanath Sanyal and Swami Sharadananda, they were close friends. They came together the same time to Sri Ramakrishna. We have already mentioned something of how the master gave him instructions and molded his life since then. The master rendered his life full of bliss by initiating him in a mantra. Sri Ramakrishna initiated very few people by giving a mantra. His way of awakening spirituality was different, sometimes by a touch, sometimes just by a look. But few people he gave a mantra. Some of them he wrote a mantra on the tongue, but very few he gave by uttering the mantra vocally. Vaikuntha engaged himself in the sadhana since that time and was striving his best that he might have the vision of his chosen ideal. Knowing that he could not succeed in his attempt without the master's grace, He was from time to time plaintively praying to him for it, especially when the master became physically ill and came to Calcutta and then to Kosipur for treatment. During this period also, twice or thrice, Vaikuntha got the opportunity of humbly beseeching him for the fulfillment of his heart's desire. The master smiled graciously, comforted him, and said, "Why don't you wait? Let the disease of the body be cured a little, and I shall do everything for you." See, Vaikuntha was doing a lot of spiritual practices here with the mantra that Sri Ramakrishna gave, but he could not get any experience, or he realized that by his own effort, he won't be able to attain the goal, that's realize God, realize his chosen deity. And so he was begging for, asking Sri Ramakrishna for his grace. That's one idea we have to remember. Spiritual, by our spiritual practices alone, we can never attain self-realization of God realization or self-realization. Spiritual practices we have to do, self-effort is necessary just to purify the heart. And they say again and again, we see here Sri Ramakrishna and Holy Mother saying, do the spiritual practices and patiently wait for God's grace. Only through God's grace can you realize God. And when God's grace comes, we don't know. So the spiritual practices are preparing to receive God's grace. Make us grace worthy. That's the purpose of all the spiritual practices. Now, when Vaikuntha asked him again and again, Sri Ramakrishna said, "Why don't you wait a little? Let the disease be cured a little, and then we will do." So that is increasing his yearning. When he is asked, wait. So asking him to wait means Sri Ramakrishna is making him increase the yearning for realization of God. Vaikuntha was present on the spot at the time of this day's occurrence. As soon as the master had blessed 2 or 3 of the devotees by his potent touch, Vaikuntha came before him, bowed down to him with devotion, and said, "Sir, please bestow your grace on me." The master said, "But you have been given everything." "When you say," said Vaikuntha, "everything has been given, it is certainly so. But kindly do so that I too can understand it." Saying, "So be it," the master touched his chest only for a moment in the ordinary way. So when Vaikuntha came forward and bowed down to Sri Ramakrishna and said, "Sir, please bestow your grace on me," Sri Ramakrishna said, "You have already got everything." Then Vaikuntha said, "Well, if you say you have got everything, I must have got. But I don't understand. Please see that I understand it." When you say everything has been given, it is certainly so. But kindly do so that I too can understand. I don't understand that I have got everything. Please do something that I can understand. Then Sri Ramakrishna said, saying, "So be it," he just touched Vaikuntha for a minute. "But," said Vaikuntha, "as a result of it, a great revolution took place in my mind. I saw the figure of the Master lit up with a gracious smile in the sky, in the houses, trees, plants, men, and in whatever else I looked at. I did not know how to contain the delight within myself, and seeing both of you, Sharath and Latu, on the roof, I called aloud, saying, 'O you all, wherever you be, come without delay.' That mental attitude and vision of mine continued for some days throughout my waking state. I became amazed and charmed with the holy vision of the Master in all things. It continued to be so wherever I went, to the office or elsewhere on any business." Just the touch of Sri Ramakrishna. We see that it happened in the life of Swamiji. Narendra one day was, that happened in Dakshinesha, when Sri Ramakrishna was in Dakshinesha. Narendra was sitting and talking with Hasra on the veranda outside. Narendra did not believe that everything is God. So he was making fun. Sri Ramakrishna says everything is God, the whole universe is God, Brahman. And Narendra was making fun. Oh, everything is Brahman, everything is consciousness. This cup is Brahman, this glass is Brahman, this plate is Brahman. And both of them started laughing, making fun of Sri Ramakrishna. Sri Ramakrishna heard this and came out from his room and just touched Narendra. And that one touch of Sri Ramakrishna, Narendra actually saw everything as consciousness. Everything. He was, from then he has to go back to Calcutta, go home. The people, vehicles, carriages, horse, everything is Brahman, consciousness, pure consciousness. When home, mother served him lunch. Mother is seeing as consciousness. The food served on the plate is consciousness. Everything is consciousness. It went on for a few days. Then after a few days, the intensity reduced and he start seeing everything as though in a dream. And he says, one day he was walking in the city and everything looks as a dream. The carriage coming, and he didn't feel like moving out of the way of the horse. Then he went and hit his head on the railing on the side to see whether it is real or he's dreaming. And it took quite few days for that intensity to reduce and come back to normal consciousness. Here, that's what happened to Vaikuntha. Similar thing happened to Madhur Babu, the proprietor of the Kali temple. He wanted ecstasy. Because Sri Ramakrishna is having ecstasy, he wanted a little bit of ecstasy. Sri Ramakrishna said, no, you don't have to. You are serving me, that is enough. Mother will bless you. No, I want to have a taste of the ecstasy. So one day, then Sri Ramakrishna said, well, if mother wills, what can I do? If mother wills, it will happen. So one day it happened. He got ecstasy and he started laughing, weeping. And then he can't look after the business of the estate. All the business, he can't do anything. And then after a few days, he realized, no, this won't go. It cannot go on like this. So he came back to Sri Ramakrishna and said, no, please take it back. The ecstasy is good for you, not for me. So immediately, the moment Sri Ramakrishna touched, everything came back to normal. That's what happening here to Vaikuntha. He went to office. No, it continued to be so wherever I went, to the office or elsewhere on any business. I could not attend to the work on hand and it suffered. On finding that my work was suffering, I tried to forget that vision for some time, but failed in my attempt to do so. So they had to go to work, earn money, to look after the family. But this vision of Sri Ramakrishna is everywhere. Everywhere, whatever he is looking, wherever he is looking, he is seeing only the smiling face of Sri Ramakrishna. I tried to forget that vision, but failed. I then understood a little why Arjuna felt afraid to see the universal form of the divine Lord and prayed to him to withdraw it. I remembered the statement of the scriptures that liberated souls always remain in the same elevated state. Only after this experience, I could understand the extent of desirelessness the mind has to develop to have the capacity to remain in that high state. See, only if the mind is completely free from desire can it remain in that high state. Now, ordinary people like Vaikuntha, he had to look after the family, he has got desires. So he cannot stay, his mind could not stay in that high state. That's why he's saying, only after this experience I could understand the extent of desirelessness the mind has to develop to have the capacity to remain in that high state. For hardly had a few days passed when I felt it difficult to live in the same mental attitude and with the same vision. Sometimes it occurred to me, am I going mad? I then prayed to the Master again with fear. O Lord, I am not able to contain this mental state. Please ordain that it may come to an end. I now think, woe be to human weakness and stupidity. Why did I pray so? Why did I not keep my faith firm in Him? And why did I not wait patiently to see its ultimate developments? I might, at most, have become mad, or the body might have dropped off. That was he. Now he is afterwards he is repenting. Why did I do that? Why didn't I wait? For as soon as I prayed in that manner, the said vision and the mental state came to an end one day. Soon after he prayed, "Oh Lord, please withdraw it. I can't contain this mental state. Ordain that it may come to an end." A few days later, everything vanished, disappeared. For as soon as I prayed in this manner, the said vision and the mental state came to an end one day. My firm conviction is that they were removed by the same extraordinary being from whom I had got them. But he preserved compassionately a partial capacity of the mind to recapture it. Perhaps because there arose no prayer in my mind for its complete removal. I felt blessed and amazed at the sudden appearance of this vision a few times daily. See, Sri Ramakrishna removed the vision not completely, only which was all the time, that was removed. But he is still getting the vision a few times daily. The vision of the gracious figure of the Master made effulgent by the divine mood. There he finishes and ends the description. So this is the day when Sri Ramakrishna blessed his householder disciples. That's one thing he had meant. No monastic disciples, the young disciples who later became monks were present. This is especially a day meant for his householder devotees. That is why we celebrate this Kalpatharu day, the day when Sri Ramakrishna blessed his householder devotees. So let us also pray that he bless all of you. And let's have the prayer like Vaikuntha. Please make us feel your blessings. Thank you.
So thanks to everybody for attending tonight, and thanks for those who have joined us live via YouTube or who will be watching later. You're invited now to stay back and get a share of the sweets and savouries. And just a reminder that most Sundays during our summer recess, we'll be having a spiritual readings and silent meditation on Sunday mornings. You can join the nuns here from 11 a.m. to 12 noon for that. On Sunday, the 10th of January, we'll have the public celebration of Holy Mother's birthday. So you're most welcome to attend that. And that will also be broadcast live on YouTube. We'll have two talks, a talk by Gayatriprana and a talk by Dr. Uma Srinivasan, and a bit of live music and song. And we do hope we can be staging all of that if the COVID-19 situation here backs off a bit. We in Sydney here are a little bit on the edge. It's spreading. So we do hope we'll be able to hold these events here in Vedanta Hall, but in any case, it will be on YouTube. And we have donation plate there, donation box up the back.